guys, today we're going to learn some more about gases, and we're going to learn about something called Dalton's law. So there's two versions of Dalton's law, and the first one is Dalton's law of partial pressure by addition. So highlight that word. When we're adding the gases and we're adding for Dalton's law, your formula is going to look like this. So you read this as the total pressure equals P1 plus P2 plus P3. These things are all called partial pressures. They are a part of the whole entire total pressure. And you're going to have to adjust your formula sometimes. The total pressure will equal different numbers of partial pressures. You'll know how many partial pressures to write, how many of these things you'll put, because it'll be the number of different gases. So if you see a question with 2 different gases in it, you'll only write 2 partial pressures. If you see a question with 4 different gases in it, then we'll write 4 partial pressures. Another option, though, for Dalton's law is you could have Dalton's law of partial pressures by percent. And it will be very clear. You'll literally see a percent sign in the question, and then you'll know to use this formula. This one looks like this. The pressure will equal the percent over 100 times the total pressure. So again, here is the partial pressure that you'll be asked about. Okay. L in there. So let's try a couple examples. Grab your periodic table, or grab your, actually you don't need a periodic table, grab a calculator though. Okay. If I look at number 1, I don't see any percentages in there, so that tells me I'm just going to be dealing with the law of addition. And so I'm going to know that P total equals, and then I've got P1 plus P2. I've got 2 different gases. I have Ne and I have Ar. That's how I know that I only need 2 partial pressures. After that, I'm just going to look for the numbers and highlight them, because that's all I care about next. So just find the numbers, highlight them. Then let's see what we know. We know that we're looking for the total pressure. That means this is the piece that I don't know. That's my X that I'm looking for. So partial pressure 1 could be 542. Plus the second partial pressure of 234, and you just add those up in your calculator. So when I add that up, I get 776, and of course you have to do sig figs. So we've got 3 sig figs here, 3 sig figs here, so let's make our answer have 3 sig figs, which it already does. The last thing you have to do is put one of your pressure units on. Remember, your options for pressure units could be atmospheres, millimeters of mercury, or kilopascals. You won't have to guess, it'll tell you in the question. So I see millimeters of mercury given in the question, that's what I'm going to put on my answer. So it'll be right there for you. Now let's try a different version. In the next question, I see some percent signs standing out at me. That tells me we're going to use Dalton's law of partial pressures with percentage. So my partial pressure will equal percent over 100 times the total pressure. So let's find some numbers and figure out what we need. There's a pressure number. I'm going to use one of these percentages. So if you do a little bit of reading, you'll see that it asks me about oxygen. This is the percentage attached to oxygen. That means we don't care about this other one. We're only going to worry about the oxygen. Okay? So I'm looking for the pressure of oxygen. That's my X. I know that the percentage is 13. Divide by 100 times the total pressure that they give me. This is the only thing in the question that has a pressure unit attached to it, so that has to be in my answer. So we're going to go 760. So then put that in your calculator. And my calculator says 87.1. So then we're just going to check our sig figs. This is an Atlantic number. It only has 2 sig figs. Our percentage also has 2, so if I want to round this to 2 sig figs, we're going to stop it right there and make it 87. Again, the pressure unit that you'll use will be given in the question. So it says mmHg, that's what we'll put on our answer. Alright, so here's your job. You've got lots of practice on this page. I want you to try it by yourself. I'm about to scroll through the answers. If you get something wrong, if you can't figure it out, then I will walk through all of the questions with you. But right now I want you to pause. Let's see if you can do these and then come back and compare answers with me. Okay, how'd you do? So I'm going to scroll through the answers. Here's number 3 and 4. There's 5 and 6. And there's number 7. Now, if you struggled with any of these, if you got a different answer, I'm going to walk through all of these so you can watch whatever you need to. Alright, if you struggled with number 3, we're going to use the law of partial pressures by addition. There's no percentages in here. And I see 2 different gases in the question, so I'm going to put 2 partial pressures in. Okay? Let's look for our numbers. There's 1, there's 1. So in this one I'm looking for a partial pressure. That means I'm missing P1 or P2, and it doesn't matter which one you choose. Okay? So it tells me the total pressure, I see that word there, is 6.45. So that goes over here. That means my other partial pressure is 2.07. A very common mistake is to forget to put the plus sign in there. Make sure that you write that, because now you're going to use algebra to solve. You're going to minus 2.07 from each side. If you forget to write the plus sign, you might forget to minus, so make sure that you put that plus sign in. Okay? This cancels. I'm going to subtract those 2 numbers. So my calculator says 4.38. It already has the sig fig that we needed, and atmospheres was given in the question, and so that's why we put it on our answer. Let's take a peek at number 4. Again, I don't see any percentages in the question, so we're going to do the law of addition. So P total equals P1 plus, I see oxygen and I see nitrogen again, so only 2 partial pressures. Let's look for the numbers that we need. So in this one it asks for the pressure of the oxygen. Again, that's one of the partial pressures. So you're missing either P1 or P2. It doesn't matter which one you choose. It gives me the total pressure right here. So the other partial pressure, don't forget your plus sign, is that. Okay, so make sure that you include this plus sign every single time. If you forget to write it, you might do your algebra wrong, and it's very easy to forget to write that plus sign, so make sure that you include that. That's going to remind you that now you have to subtract these numbers. So subtract that, whoops, from both sides. This cancels, and I get x equals, when I subtract those 2 numbers, my calculator will say 231. Then we just have to double check our sig figs. We were given 5 here and 4 here, but what we had in our calculator only has 1, or only has 3, so we need 1 more. To fix that, we're going to put a point and a 0. That gives me the 4 sig figs that I wanted. We put mmHg on it because it gave us that unit in the question. Let's take a peek at number 5. So in number 5, I don't see any percentages, so that means it's the law of addition. So P1 plus, how many do you need? I see 1, 2, 3 gases. So we're going to do 3 partial pressures. Okay. Then let's look for some numbers. There's 1, there's 1, there's 1. I am looking for the pressure of the carbon dioxide. That means I'm missing one of these partial pressures. It doesn't matter if it's 1 or 2 or 3. That doesn't matter. So find the word total. What's our total pressure? I see it right there, so that's this number. Then put your other partial pressures in. It's very easy to forget to write the plus signs in between these numbers. Make sure that when you use the law of addition that you actually put in the addition signs. So the way that you're going to want to solve this is leave this side. Let's take care of the addition of these 2 numbers first. Again, put a plus and then your calculator answer of 77.1. Okay? If you forget that plus sign, you might get something very different. That plus sign is going to remind you to subtract. Those cancel. Now you can subtract those two numbers over here, 183.4 minus 77.1. My calculator says 106.3. Then we'll check our sig figs. I see 3, and then I see 4. So remember, when you have the option, go low. That means I want to finish with 3 sig figs. The third sig fig is right here at that 6, but we left it a 6 in our answer because the 3 afterwards doesn't make it round up. Lastly, for your unit, you look at the unit that you were given in the question and just tack that on the end. Alright, let's take a peek at number 6. I don't see any percentages, so we're going to do the law of addition. And so I know that I've got carbon dioxide is one gas, but then it tells me there's 2 other gases. That means altogether you have 3 of them. That one's a little bit tricky to figure out. You have to do some extra reading for that. Now let's find all the numbers that we want. There they are. It asks me to find the partial pressure. These are the partial pressures over there, so you're looking for one of those. Total is the word right there, so that tells me 30.4 is my total pressure. Don't forget to write your plus signs when you're working. Put your other partial pressures in. Oops. 10.8. Remember, when you're doing this, there are plus signs up here in your formula. Make sure to include those plus signs down below. If you forget those plus signs, it's going to mess up the algebra as you work, so make sure to carry those down. First thing we're going to do to solve this is let's add those two numbers in your calculator. Make sure you write plus again. Don't drop your plus signs. So my calculator here says 27.3. Again, notice that we brought the plus sign down. If you forget to write that addition sign, it might mess up your algebra. That addition sign means to solve this, we are going to subtract to get our final answer. So now subtract 30.4 minus 27.3. My calculator says 3.1, and then we'll just take care of our sig figs. All of the numbers that we started with had 3 sig figs, but in my answer from my calculator I only have 2. To add the last sig fig that you need, it's okay to add a 0. Lastly, we see kPa in the question, and so that's the unit that we put on our answer. Alright, let's take a look at number 7, our last one. Let's see how you did. I don't see any partial pressure or any percentage signs here, so we're going to do this law with addition. So P total equals, in this one I see hydrogen as a gas and water as a gas. When it says collected over water, that's another gas. So that means you have 2 partial pressures. Okay? So find some numbers and highlight them. Now remember, we're using pressure here, so you don't want to highlight all of the numbers. You really only care about numbers with pressure units. So this milliliters over here is not a pressure unit, so we're not going to use that. Same thing for this 20 Celsius. That's not a pressure number. This 78.0 is a pressure number, and this is a pressure number here with 17.5. All those other numbers are in there to trick you, and they don't matter. So just focus on the things that have pressure attached to them. So now let's see what we can put in. We're looking for the pressure of the dry gas. That's one of the partials. It gives me the total pressure, which is the 78.0. The other partial pressure is the pressure of the water. Okay. Notice that when we did this, you have to bring the plus sign down. If you forget to write that plus sign, it's going to make your algebra get messed up. Okay, so make sure to carry it down from above. Now we're going to remember to solve this. Because we wrote that plus sign, we're going to subtract 17.5 from each side. So your calculator should say 60.5. I only care about the sig figs for the numbers that we highlighted. All the other ones we crossed off don't matter. Both of our original numbers had 3 sig figs. Our answer has 3 sig figs. And since we had millimeters of mercury as a unit in the question, that's what we put in the answer. Alright, so now you have 2 more whole pages of practice. You can work on that, or you can come ask me questions on anything that we just did. Good luck!